Welcome to Introduction to Risk-Based Inspection, presented by AssetWise Ivara Performance Management. This module introduces you to risk-based inspection RBI concepts, benefits and limitations, RBI assessment process, RBI assessment in APM, including criticality and confidence assessment, corrosion loop definition, degradation types, age-related, non-age-related, strategy-based. Introduction to risk-based inspection. Risk-based inspection concept, benefits, and limitations. Risk-based inspection, or RBI process, is focused on maintaining the mechanical integrity of pressurized equipment and minimizing the risk of loss of containment due to deterioration. RBI assessment results in an equipment risk ranking based on the probability of failure or leak occurring, for example, and the consequence associated with that failure. RBI process also produces inspection and maintenance plan for equipment and identify the actions that should be taken to provide reliable and safe operation. RBI is a risk assessment and risk management tool that addresses the area of risk management which are not completely covered in other operational risk management efforts such as PHA, Integrity Operating Window, or RCM. PHA, or Process Hazard Assessment process, for example, focuses on the process unit design and operating practices and their adequacy given the unit's current or anticipated conditions. RBI complements the PHA by focusing on mechanical integrity related damage mechanism and risk management through the inspection. RBI also is complementary to RCM program. RBI provides a vehicle for continuously improving the inspection of facilities and systematically reducing risk associated with pressure boundary equipments. Risk is defined as probability of an event multiplied by its consequence. Risk management is a process to assess risk, determine if risk reduction is required, in other words, if some risks are beyond the acceptable level risk, and develop a plan to maintain risk at an acceptable level. Effective risk assessment is a rational, logical, and structured process and contains at least two key steps: determine how big the risk is and determine whether the risk is acceptable. Please note that risk reduction and risk management are not synonyms. Risk reduction is a part of risk management process. To understand the risk concept in RBI, let's consider the risk profile of an asset with a time-based prescriptive inspection plan. It is assumed that risk decreases as the level of inspection activity increases, since inspection provides us information about the probability of a failure, which leads to taking some actions in the form of mitigation or maintenance activities. These risk mitigations or maintenance activities will ultimately reduce the asset risk. By implementing a risk-based strategy, we can achieve a better risk profile in two ways. First, by refocusing the inspection activities on more critical equipment and deferring the inspections from less critical ones, the overall risk level of a plant or facility can be reduced without increasing the overall level of inspection activities in that plant. On the other hand, it is possible to maintain the same level of risk and reduce the level of inspection activities if no risk reduction is required and that unit is already operating at an acceptable risk level. This can result in cost saving by avoiding the unnecessary inspection, although cost saving is not the primary objective of the implementing an RBI program. Please note that implementing an RBI program can only reduce risk down to a as low as practically possible level. There is always going to be a residual risk for operating any facility. The factors contributing to this residual risk are, but not limited to, human errors, natural disasters, external events such as collision or falling objects, secondary effect from nearby units, consequential effects from associated equipment in the same unit, deliberate acts such as sabotage, fundamental limitation of inspection methods, design errors, and unknown or unanticipated damage mechanism. So, in summary, by risk management through a risk-based inspection program, we can achieve an acceptable risk level by focusing the inspection activities on more critical items to reduce their risk and avoiding the cost of unnecessary inspection on the less critical items. Inspection influences the uncertainty of the risk associated with pressure equipment primarily by providing knowledge of deterioration state and predictability of the probability of a failure. Although inspection does not reduce the risk directly, it is a risk management activity providing new information that may lead to risk reduction. Impending failure of the pressure equipment is not avoided by inspection activities unless the inspection results in immediate risk mitigation activities that changes the probability of a failure. Risk assessment method can be quantitative, qualitative, or semi-quantitative. The level of details in RBI assessment increases as the method moves from being qualitative to become quantitative. A qualitative risk analysis primarily relies on engineering judgment and experience as the basis for determining the probabilities and consequence of failures. The results of qualitative risk analysis are dependent on the background and expertise of the analysts and the objective of the analysis. FMEA and HAZOP are examples of qualitative risk analysis technique. If consequence and failure probability values are estimated for each descriptive input in this analysis, then they will become quantitative risk analysis. Quantitative risk analysis identify and outline the combination of events that, if occur, may lead to severe event or other undesired consequences. Then it estimates the probability of occurrence for each combination and also estimates the consequence of it. Quantitative risk analysis generally integrates information about facility design, operating practices, operating history, component reliability, human actions, and the physical progression of incidents, and potential environment and health effects. It uses logic and probability models depicting combination of events and the progression of incidents to provide both qualitative and quantitative insight to the level of risks. Analysis logic models in quantitative risk analysis consist of event trees and fault trees to estimate the frequency of each incident sequence. There is a continuous spectrum of methods available to assess risk, anywhere from qualitative, which are strictly risk ranking, to quantitative rigorous calculations. Complexity of risk analysis is a function of number of the factors that can affect the risk. RBI analysis method in Bentley APM is semi-quantitative. The risk presented as a precise numeric value in a quantitative analysis may imply a greater level of accuracy when it's compared to a risk matrix provided by a qualitative analysis. However, this implied linkage may not exist because the element of uncertainty that is inherent with probabilities and consequence calculations. These uncertainties can be about the basis for predicted damage mechanism and corrosion rates, the level of confidence in inspection data, or the techniques that are used to perform a risk assessment. Often there are so many factors affecting the estimations of a probability of a failure as well as its magnitude, that the magnitude of its consequence, that practically it's not possible to take all of them into account in a fixed model. Since not everything can be measured, determined, or predicted precisely, calculating the absolute risk value is time-consuming and difficult due to these uncertainties. Moreover, RBI is focused on systematic determination of relative risks and serves as a vehicle for focusing the risk management efforts. Therefore, in many cases, it is beneficial to use quantitative and qualitative methods in a complementary fashion or semi-quantitative method to create the most effective and efficient assessments. In summary, we can refer to this quote that for risk calculation associated with risk center maintenance, accuracy is not as important as consistency, meaning that any time with the same information when the risk assessment is repeated, it should result to the same risk ranking in a consistent way. RBI benefits include moving away from time-based inspection, which are often governed by minimum compliance with rules, regulations, and standards for inspection, safeguarding integrity and improving reliability and availability of the asset by planning and executing those inspections that are needed, overall reduction in risk, gaining economic benefits by increasing plant availability and reducing unplanned shutdown, achieving overall more cost-effective inspection and maintenance without compromising safety or reliability, developing a flexible technique able to continuously improve and adapt to changing risk environment, defining clear inspection techniques and methods based on thorough understanding of potential failure modes. The RBI assessment also identifies equipment that do not require inspection or any form of risk mitigation activity since the level of risk at the current operation is acceptable. In this way, inspection and maintenance can be more focused and cost effective. This can also result in a significant reduction in the amount of collected inspection data. Focusing on a smaller data set result in more accurate information. In some cases, in addition to the risk reduction and process safety improvements, RBI plans may result in the cost reduction as well. Please note that cost reduction is not a primary objective of the RBI program. It's important to note that RBI does not compensate for inaccurate or missing information, inadequate design or faulty equipment installation, operating outside integrity operating window, not effectively executing the plans, lack of qualified personnel or teamwork, and lack of sound engineering or operational judgment. Although the RBI does not compensate for these deficiencies, it helps to identify the issues that need to be resolved. I invite you to continue to learn more about risk-based inspection in part 2 of this training modules reviewing RBI assessment process.